last time I talked about the SAG-AFTRA strike, they were in negotiations with the AMPTP, which, right on the heels of the WGA getting basically everything they were asking for, felt to me at the time like this was going to be mostly a formality, especially as when the talks ended on Friday last week, and then they announced that they would be resuming on Monday. They were just, taking the weekend to get their own stuff together and then going back. It kind of looked hopeful, right? It looked like they were about to reach a new deal, and we were going to be able to see Hollywood get back to business. But I regret to inform you that the AMPTP be AMPTPing. This is the SAG-AFTRA official Twitter account. To our fellow SAG-AFTRA members, it is with profound disappointment that we report the industry CEOs have walked away from the bargaining table after refusing to counter our latest offer. We have negotiated with them in good faith, despite the fact that last week they presented an offer that was shockingly worth less than they proposed before the strike began. These companies refuse to protect performers from being replaced by AI, they refuse to increase your wages to keep up with inflation, and they refuse to share a tiny portion of the immense revenue your work generates for them. We have made big, meaningful counters on our end, including completely transforming our revenue share proposal, which would cost the companies less than 57 cents per subscriber each year. They have rejected our proposals and refused to counter. Instead, they use bully tactics. Just tonight, they intentionally misrepresented to the press the cost of the above proposal, overstating it by 60%. They have done the same with AI, claiming to protect performer consent, but continuing to demand consent on the first day of employment for use of a performer's digital replica for an entire cinematic universe or any franchise project. The companies are using the same failed strategy they tried to inflict on the WGA, putting out misleading information in an attempt to fool our members into abandoning our solidarity and putting pressure on our negotiators. But just like the writers, our members are smarter than that and will not be fooled. We feel the pain these companies have inflicted on our members, our strike captains, IATSE, Teamsters, and Basic Crafts union members, and everyone in this industry. We have sacrificed too much to capitulate to their stonewalling and greed. We stand united and ready to negotiate today, tomorrow, and every day. Our resolve is unwavering. Join us on picket lines and at solidarity events around the country and let your voices be heard. One day longer, one day stronger, as long as it takes. So, yeah, the AMPTP walked away from the negotiating table, which means that we are probably not going to see an end to this strike until like year's end. I don't anticipate them coming back to the table for at least a month. And my source on that is vibes. Obviously, this is just my impression based on how they were negotiating with the WGA when they had the brief session with the industry CEOs meeting with the negotiators. They basically used that to try and browbeat the union, and then just walked away and didn't resume negotiations for another month. So I suspect they're trying the same tactic here with SAG-AFTRA. I don't know why. They clearly got their asses kicked in the WGA negotiations. Surely they can't imagine that they're going to get a better deal here. Maybe they're thinking because the WGA got a deal that now it's time for SAG-AFTRA to, just capitulate and be like, see, you should have taken our deal originally. WGA got what they wanted. You held out and you didn't take our deal. So, screw you. Especially the idea that that during this conversation, what did it say it? We have negotiated with them in good faith, despite the fact that last week they presented an offer that was shockingly worth less than they proposed before the strike began. Yeah, so they're actually countering down, which does not sound to me like a company that is engaging in good faith negotiations. So what happened? Well, the Hollywood Reporter has an interview with Duncan Crabtree Ireland, who is the National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator for SAG-AFTRA. So, I have not actually read this yet. I figured we could go through it together. One day after Hollywood's top companies announced that talks with performers union SAG-AFTRA would be suspended for this foreseeable future, Duncan Crabtree Ireland was back on the picket lines at Netflix rallying members. The National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator for the union gave a speech at the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Van Ness Avenue telling his members, one day longer, one day stronger. Afterward, he explained to The Hollywood Reporter how, in his view, the talks with the AMPTP had broken down. According to Crabtree Ireland, the decision was mystifying and arrived from the studio side after a fairly typical day of negotiations. I was certainly taken by surprise, he said. Crabtree Ireland also discussed the state of proposals around artificial intelligence, why the WGA success-based streaming residual won't work for his union, and what his message to the industry is on the 91st day of SAG-AFTRA strike. THR has asked the AMPTP for comment on the union leader's remarks. I'm guessing this means AMPTP has not gotten back to THR yet. Now, I will remind you that The Hollywood Reporter, like Deadline and like Variety, are all owned by one parent company, Penske Media, which also owns Dick Clark Productions, which is a member of the AMPTP. So before we get into this, before we see what questions are being asked and how THR might be framing this, keep that in mind that there is a financial incentive for these industry rags to side with the AMPTP. That doesn't extend to every single reporter there, but it does mean you need to consider editorial control of these papers, what they choose to publish, and what angles they choose to investigate on. But with that being said, let's go ahead and read this interview. In your view, what happened in the room that led to the breakdown in talks? I'm not even clear that it's something that happened in the room, because the vibe yesterday was similar to all of our previous sessions with them, which I would describe as very candid, very direct, intense at times, but in a respectful sort of way. So I was certainly taken by surprise by their decision last night to call me and cancel our scheduled negotiation session for today and to tell me that they don't plan to return to the table. I think that's a completely wrong-headed decision. There is no way to move this forward without talking, and it took them so long to get back to the table in the first place. It's really disappointing that after this amount of time, they would just walk away again. When did they call you? The first call was about 5:30 p.m. yesterday, so this interview was published today. So yeah, 5:30 p.m. on the 11th. You said in your speech that you offered a proposal right before the suspended discussions. Yeah, we spent most of our time together yesterday working through a comprehensive counterproposal that we gave to them. On Monday, we gave them a counterproposal on AI. All of that is waiting for their response. We made a huge concession on streaming revenue share, changing that proposal away from a revenue percentage into just a viewership proposal, massive move in their direction. I'm truly shocked that they have not responded favorably to that and that they instead decided to walk away from the table. It is mystifying to me why they think that is a way to move this process forward. SAG-AFTRA said in its statement this morning that the offer the studios provided most recently was less valuable than the one that they offered before the strike. Do you have any numbers that can illustrate that, or can you explain why that might be? Yeah, I can explain why. I probably can't give you exact numbers, but basically what they did is they tried to push out all of the changes in the contract based on the amount of time that the strike has lasted. And so because now obviously we're in October, that's basically trying to push out wage increases, trying to push out all of the other gains that should be in the contract. And so that obviously lowers the value of that contract because you don't get your raise until later, you've lost out on money, so that's how that happens. Okay. So because of the length of the strike, it means that the minimum gains would show up at a later point in the cycle. In your view, what are the outstanding issues at this point? We still don't have a resolution on the biggest issues. They haven't moved on minimums. They haven't done anything to try and address inflation for our lowest earning members. That's not right. We still don't have a deal on AI. They continue to insist on having the right to get consent from someone, so-called consent from someone, on day one of working on a franchise project and use that consent for the entire duration of the franchise. Yeah, no, no, that's bad. That is a situation where you show up for one day of filming on a Marvel project, and then they don't want to hire you back, but you were playing a character that is kind of important at some point in the MCU. Well, they just paste your face on somebody else and keep going with it. No, thank you. So you want to have multiple points of consent? Well, right. I mean, for example, if you get your big break and you get to work on a Marvel movie as a weekly performer or something like that, if 10 years later they want to put you in another Marvel movie, they need to come back to you and ask you. What they want is to say, you can either take this job and give us consent forever, or we'll cast somebody else. That's not right. It's not real consent. Can't consent to something that hasn't even been imagined yet, and that's what they want. So things like that. AI basic minimums, what we are now calling our streaming viewership proposal, all of these big issues are still open because they were refusing to move, and it's really frustrating. It sounds like the AMPTP offered SAG-AFTRA its proposal to the Writers Guild of America in terms of a bonus that would reward successful streaming programs. Why won't that work for SAG-AFTRA? For our purposes, it doesn't adequately address the range of performers who need to be compensated better in streaming. You know, writers work in a totally different economic structure than actors do, and that bonus proposal is limited to only a small number of projects that appear on those platforms. Our proposal from the beginning has been to provide compensation for the contribution that's made by all of our members on these streaming platforms, and we can't agree to something that's structured in the same way that it is for the writers. It just doesn't work for us. How did the CEOs change the dynamic in the negotiating room, if at all? We were able to have some very direct conversations about topics that other people haven't really been able to dig into in terms of what their reasoning is for things. I mean, hearing from the CEOs, finally, it took them a few days to get around to it, saying, "We just will not agree to a revenue share proposal under any circumstance. We will not share revenue, period." Hearing that from the ultimate decision maker does help you figure out how to structure your response to that. And as I mentioned, we accommodated that by changing our proposal to attach a totally different way. So having them in the room has the potential to make a huge difference, but they've got to be there. They've got to be in the room and they have to engage. Having them in the room and just refusing to respond to proposals doesn't really get us in. And I'm wondering if their counter proposal for this, which the CEOs probably still saw as asking for revenue share, if this is their, like, if they just have set a red line and saying we won't budge on this at all, maybe that has to do with their decision to walk away now. But again, like, the longer the strike goes on, the more money they're going to lose, and the more it's going to look appealing to just give the actors what they want. But again, when you look at how much Warner Brothers has already lost in this strike, and its losses incurred starting from the writer's strike itself, that ended up being like 10 times what it actually would just cost them to give the writers what they wanted. At some point, it's not just about the numbers on the balance sheet, it's about the power. They don't want actors to be in a better financial situation because they want the power over the actors. They want the actors desperate and willing to agree to anything because, you know, Tim Cook needs a new yacht, right? What is your message to the industry now that we're 91 days into the SAG-AFTRA strike and folks are feeling it? My message to the companies is get back in the room, get back to the table. This walking away thing isn't a way to make progress. To all of the workers in the industry, including our own members and everybody else who's suffering because of this industry's shutdown, just know we are doing everything in our power to try and negotiate a fair deal. We will not sell our members out. We will have a fair deal, but we are ready to work every day to do it. And the interruption in this negotiation, I hope, will be very short, because I hope that everyone in this industry will tell the studios, the streamers, and their CEOs to get back in the room and let's work out a deal. Admiral Polka says it's not just about the current costs, it's about having the power to prevent future costs. Yeah, exactly. And that's why the guild needs to stick together and stick it out. And there are like strike funds that people can donate to that will, you know, help out struggling actors who've been out of work for 3 months. I've been thinking about doing a fundraiser stream for there's the Entertainment Community Fund, which is on Tiltify, and that is a fund that goes to help out basically not just performers, but like a lot of people in the industry, because, you know, the strike isn't just affecting the actors. Obviously, without actors on set, you know, everybody else on set doesn't have much to film, right? I mean, you could be filming like B-roll footage of like landscapes, but that's not a lot, right? I had been thinking about doing it for a while, and then I kind of, once WGA got their deal, was like, well, maybe the time's run out on that one. Maybe by the time I get it organized and all put together, the actor strike will be done too. But with AMPTP walking away like this, I don't see an end to the strike in like the next month. So maybe I'll organize something like that. But I've never put together a fundraiser stream before myself, so I would need to talk to other people who have done it and get some more advice. Tiltify does have the entertainment. Yeah, what was it? I had the page open and I closed it. Yeah, the Entertainment Community Fund. They're set up on Tiltify, which is a crowdfunding app that has like streamer plugins and stuff. Like, I think Keffels, she did her big fundraiser using Tiltify. I think Vosh has done Tiltify charity fundraisers as well. So it might be something that I do, but I'll have to think more about it and see who I can get involved to pitch in and make it an entertaining stream and an informative stream, Maybe I can reach out to members of SAG-AFTRA, see if somebody wants to come on. I know there are some Star Trek actors who are pretty accessible, so if I could get one of them in, that would be pretty cool. But this is all very disappointing to see from the AMPTP. And I think I had a couple more articles to go over on this one. Yeah, okay, here we go. Variety has theirs. How SAG-AFTRA talks collapsed. I was taken completely by surprise, Union Chief says. So some of this is going to be referencing the THR interview with Duncan Crabtree Ireland. The AMPTP announced Wednesday night that the talks have been suspended, saying the differences between the sides is too great and that conversations are no longer moving us in a productive direction. According to Crabtree Ireland, the studios have flatly rejected the union's demand for a 2% share of streaming revenue, so on Wednesday they brought in a new proposal under which actors would be paid a set rate per subscriber from each of the major streaming platforms. Among other disagreements, the two sides do not see eye to eye on the cost of the proposal. SAG-AFTRA believes it would cost about $500 million per year, or 57 cents per subscriber. The AMPTP, which negotiates on behalf of the studios, pegged the cost at more than $800 million, or about $1.08 per subscriber. Either way, the CEOs believe it is economically irrational and not a basis for further talks. Management sources noted that in some regions outside the US, the average revenue per user metric does not reach the dollar threshold. The AMPTP has offered SAG-AFTRA a viewership-based bonus that would be patterned off the agreement reached last month with the WGA, but for SAG-AFTRA, that won't fly. Yeah, and Duncan Crabtree Ireland already talked about that. Yeah, it's a very modest sharing of the massive money that they generate from our members' work, Crabtree Ireland said. It amounts to less than a postage stamp per year per subscriber. Is that really so much to ask? Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, appeared on stage at the Bloomberg Screen Time conference on Thursday morning. He called the union subscriber-based fee a levy on subscribers. It just felt like a bridge too far to add this deep into the negotiation, he said. Yeah, no. I think everybody in the entertainment industry whose work is being shown on screen is owed residuals for it, and that means revenue share. And that means, Ted Sarandos, you're going to have to pony up some of your hard-earned cash, but we'll see how that goes. The studios in the union remain at odds on several other items, including artificial intelligence and increases in minimums to keep pace with inflation. The CEOs are particularly focused on the role of Fran Drescher, the union's president, who has taken an active part in talks over the last 2 weeks. The one-time star of The Nanny, Drescher has been credited with coming up with the initial concept of the union's revenue-sharing proposal. Studio sources said that Drescher has been adamant that the negotiation is an opportunity to change the world for actors. These sources believe she has spent more time making speeches and is unwilling to engage in productive talks. Now, again, remember, Variety, member of the AMPTP through, their parent company, so how they're going to frame this on Fran Drescher, yeah, we'll see. The studio side believes that when the WGA returned to bargaining in late September, its leaders were serious about making a deal, and that SAG-AFTRA is not there yet. That's absurd, because what we saw once the AMPTP made a deal with WGA is that the WGA got everything they were asking for. So obviously the WGA was always serious about making a deal, and here we've got them just acting like, like what happened with the WGA is completely irrelevant to the SAG-AFTRA deal, I don't know. It's this is BS. This is just absolutely not true. This is just their negotiating tactic. They're stomping their feet and going, no, we can't charge 57 cents per subscriber per year to pay for actors to live. The AMPTP published its most recent proposal on Wednesday night in hopes that rank-and-file members will read it and see it as a reasonable basis for further negotiation. The AMPTP made a similar move when talks stalled with the WGA in mid-August, which prompted backlash from members who saw it as an attempt to circumvent leadership. Crabtree Ireland said that the union remains ready and willing to negotiate. Donna Langley, NBC Universal Chief Content Officer, who with Sarandos are among the 4 senior studio executives who have met with SAG-AFTRA in 8 bargaining sessions, told the Screen Time conference on Wednesday night that executives were committed to getting to the finish line, but 2 hours after she spoke, the AMPTP issued the lengthy statement that surprised the SAG-AFTRA team. We've been spending time with the actors, and we want to spend as much time as it takes until we can reach a resolution and get the industry back on its feet and back to work, Langley said. On Thursday morning, Crabtree Ireland was resolute. They're the ones who walked away from the table, not us. Now, there was one further article on this from THR that had actors react to the studio talks breaking down. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to look to see, specifically read the actual actors' quotes. Many of the actors did not seem surprised at the outcome. I've been following what happened with the WGA, and we know they've been going back and forth with the AMPTP as well, and we know how greedy they've been and reluctant on giving everyone a fair deal right now. Actor Davis Tamar told THR. Everybody was really hopeful that this was going to be the end, but no, I wasn't surprised based off the way that talks went at the beginning of the strike, Adam Shapiro said. We're actors, the threat of losing our houses, that's already what it's like being an actor. We're hustlers, this is what we do. If we've got to be out here another month to be paid fairly and to be valued the way that we should be, then that's what we've got to do. It's easy to get discouraged and disheartened. It's easy to lose hope. It's easy to fall into anger, Saul Crespo, New Amsterdam, told THR on the picket lines. But part of what makes artists is resiliency and the fact that this is what we love to do and nothing is going to stop us from doing that. Here we are, day 91. They made a deal with WGA, and so it's also like, is this a tactic? Is it not? Well, obviously it's a tactic. But honestly, we don't have time for that. We've lost so much work, a lot of money, a lot of people out of work. I think we're sort of licking our wounds a little bit, but you know, it's a normal response to have. Things felt like they were going so well, and it's not what we hoped for. Jeffrey Blake added, morale is not great today. This is about half of what we see usually, so by announcing their letter, I hope it doesn't decrease morale. I think that's the intention. I think this is the time not to get dejected. This is the time to fire up. Yeah, I think so as well. I was sad to see them break down. Daniel Francis, perhaps best known for his turn in comedy classic Mean Girls, said of the negotiations. For an industry that is supposed to be creative, it's also giving. We give ourselves, our time, our energy, our emotion. And for the greed to be the thing ruling this town, it's just so disappointing. What we're asking for is what we deserve. They're still going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, but we just need to make a little bit of money to live. I remember seeing Michelle Hurd, who is the SAG-AFTRA LA vice president, and she was also on Star Trek Picard. She played Rafi Musiker. I remember seeing a talk from her where she said that, like, you take an actor who has been, say, like, in 4 things you've seen this year. Say they've had 4 TV guest spots. And you're thinking, oh, wow, that actor's doing really well. Well, for each guest spot, they would be paid, like, what, $8,000. So for 4 of those for the year, that's $32,000. That's nothing in LA. That is not a living wage in LA. So even for actors that you perceive as like, oh, wow, they're making it. They're hustling. They're getting there. They're getting work. They're not getting paid. Many performers on the picket lines on Thursday referenced residuals as a major issue they were still concerned about. Residuals is what gets a lot of actors through the lean times because it's never a 24/7 gig, actor Scott Perry added. Most actors are lucky to get a couple of gigs a year and they get residuals to help people go into the next one. Now, absent those residuals, they don't have a means to stay afloat. So, you know, until somebody hits it big, that is their lifeline. Blake added, it used to be that I thought I could support my whole family. I could put my kids through school, have a very nice middle-class life. That does not exist anymore. The residuals from streaming, non-existent. The residuals from network, certainly depleted. We as the actors are not getting paid our fair share. We're not, and it has to change. So we will be out here until they pay our fair share. Apart from residuals, actors said that the most important bargaining point is the use of artificial intelligence. Just using our likeness and not having to get paid for it. That's not right, said Robert Hockey, a SAG-AFTRA strike captain and actor. They have to come and meet us on that one. That's not right. The copy editing on this one is like, that's not right to at all. And also it says said Robert Hockey, comma said. Yeah, like I think they rushed this article out, so there's some copy editing that they kind of missed. We're talking about the usage of our likeness across all media throughout the universe in perpetuity, added Perry. And if you're being paid once for that without any residuals for lifetime use behind your own lifetime, that really changes the talent that's out there. Some actors say they're struggling to make ends meet lately, a situation that certainly hasn't improved during the work stoppage. Like, for example, wonders whether he can pay his monthly insurance costs or take his kids to the doctor if they need it. Francis has found a second act with stand-up comedy but hopes that something happens. At this point, they've got all the money and we don't have any of it. Amid disappointed hopes, there was still a lot of determination on the picket lines. They're hoping that we're desperate enough to take any deal that was placed on the table, Perry said, and that's just not the case. Well, I certainly hope that they can find a deal soon. I hope the AMPTP realizes that this negotiation tactic isn't going to work and comes back. But unfortunately, I don't anticipate them coming back to the table probably for another month. I would be happy to be wrong. If, like, by the next stream they're back at the table, I'm totally happy to be wrong on that one. But I fear we're in this for the longer haul. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream every Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone friend tier patron Piftle Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.